This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Efforts to create landmark treaty to end global plastic pollution advanced Monday in Nairobi as most of the world's nations, plus petrochemical companies, environmentalists, and others affected by the pollution gathered to discuss draft language for the first complete negotiations by the end of next year. Power dynamics and positions became clear in the first two rounds of talks in Paris and Punta del Este, Uruguay, and echoes some of the same positions as in international climate talks, and with good reasons. Many of the players are the same. Plastic is largely made from the crude oil and natural gas, giving oil-producing countries and companies a large stake in any treaty. Global negotiations last met in Paris in June and agreed to produce initial treaty text before convening in Nairobi. The draft was published in early September. The United Nations Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution is charged with international legally binding treaty on plastic pollution on land and at sea. Nairobi is a significant location to host this third session, as the East African country is a global leader in fighting plastic pollution. In a groundbreaking move in 2007, Kenya banned the manufacture, sale, and use of single-use plastic bags, which were hugely popular for carrying things, but were also strewn across the landscape. In what is one of the strictest bans on the products, lawbreakers face fines and up to 4 years in jail. 2 years later, Kenya banned a single-use plastic like cutlery, straws, and PET bottles from plastics for forest, beaches, and other protected areas. Kenya is also an important player in environmental matters as home to United Nations Environmental Program headquarters. Kenya generates more than 70% of its electricity from renewable sources. Church leaders throughout Africa issued an open letter this month through the charity Tear Fund, saying that Africa faces mountains of plastic pollution dumped or burnt, and called on the delegates to continue to speak out boldly for a treaty which delivers change for our most vulnerable brothers and sisters.
Floods caused by torrential rainfall have killed at least 31 people in various parts of Somalia, authorities said Sunday. Since October, floods have displaced nearly 500,000 people and disrupted the lives of over 1.2 million people. Minister of Information Duad Awes told reporters in the capital, Mogadishu. They have also caused extensive damage to civilian infrastructure, notably in the Gedo region of southern Somalia, he said. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, has given $25 million to help mitigate the impact of flooding, warning a statement Thursday of a flood event of a magnitude statistically likely once in 100 years, with significant anticipated humanitarian impact. While possible preparatory measures are being pursued, a flood of this magnitude can only be mitigated and not prevented, OCHA said, recommending early to save lives as large-scale displacement. Increased humanitarian needs and further destruction of property remain likely. The lives of some 1.6 million people in Somalia could be disrupted by floods during the rainy seasons that last until December, with 1.5 million hectares of farmland potentially being destroyed, it said. Mogadishu has been ravaged by downpours that at times swept away vulnerable people, including children and the elderly, and disrupted transportation. Floods are also affecting neighboring Kenya, where the death toll stood at 15 on Monday, according to the Kenya Red Cross. The port city of Mombasa and the northeastern counties of Mandera and elected.
Algerian President Abdul Majid Tebboune on Saturday dismissed the country's prime minister and replaced him with the head of his cabinet as the country struggles with inflation and next year's national elections approach. The state news agency said in a statement Saturday that after more than 2 years in office, Ahmed Ben would be replaced with 73-year-old lawyer Mohammed Labau Itaban ally who has headed the president's cabinet since March. Benaradaman Sakin comes 3 years into Taban's tenure and is the latest upheaval to shape North African politics. In August, Tunisia's president dismisses prime minister while the head of Algeria's powerful state-run oil company and 8 of his vice presidents were dismissed several weeks ago. For Gabon, the changing of the guard takes of economic anxiety and ahead of next year's presidential elections in December 2024. Gabon 78 will ask voters to give him another term leading Africa's largest nation by geography, a country with a population of 44 million that spans nearly 1 million square miles, including vast swaths of the Sahara with oil and gas. Throughout Gabon's first term, Algeria has remained heavily reliant on oil and gas Algeria has remained heavily reliant on oil and gas to underwrite its budget, while the price of basic goods such as food and medicine has spiked in line with regional and worldwide inflation. Algeria faces similar inflation challenges to many countries after the peak of the coronavirus pandemic and amid war in Ukraine, but has also benefited as Europe has also benefited as Europe has sought to wean itself of Russian for additional sources of energy. Much like the rest of the Middle East and North Africa, the country has experienced a street protest over Israel's latest war with Hamas in Gaza. The government has issued some of the region's most supportive statements to the Palestinians, calling Zionist colonial occupation the heart of the militants first attacked Israel, but it has imposed restrictions on some street protests, including those organized by Islamists opposed to the government.
Health officials and people trapped inside Gaza's largest hospital rejected Israel's claims that it was helping babies and others evacuate Sunday, saying fighting where incubators lay idle with no electricity and critical supplies were running out. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dismissed urgent calls for a ceasefire unless it includes the release of all the nearly 240 hostages captured by the Hamas in the October 7 rampage that triggered the war. A day after Netanyahu said Israel was bringing its aim of ending Hamas' 16-year rule in Gaza, residents reported heavy airstrikes and shelling, including around Shifa Hospital, Israel, without providing evidence, has accused Hamas of concealing a command post inside and under the compound, allegations denied by Hamas and hospital staff. The hospital's last generator ran out of fuel Saturday, leading to the deaths of 3 premature babies and 4 other health ministry. It said another 36 babies are at risk of dying. Israel's military asserted it placed 300 liters of fuel near Shifa overnight for an emergency generator powering incubators for premature babies and coordinated the delivery with hospital officials. But the military said Hamas prevented the hospital from receiving the fuel. Spokesperson Ashraf Akidra disputed the account and also told press the fuel would not be enough to operate the generator an hour. This is a mockery towards the patients and children, Akidra said.
Attacks by Lebanon's Hezbollah groups Sunday wounded 7 Israeli troops, Israel's military and rescue services said. The clashes came as skirmishes between the Iran-backed group and Israeli military continue to intensify along the Lebanon-Israel border, threatening to escalate into another front in the Middle East latest. The assault was the most serious incident involving civilians along the Lebanon-Israel airstrike in South Lebanon on November 5 killed a woman and 3 children. The Israeli Army's chief spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said the Hezbollah attack on Israeli civilians was very serious. He said Israel is focused on its war in Gaza, but it also has a level of preparedness in the north and ready to take their further action. The Israeli military has operational plans to change the security status in the north. He told reporters the security status will not remain as such that the civilians of the north do not feel safe. returning to their homes. The Israeli military said in a statement that 7 IDF were lightly injured as a result of the mortar shell launches in the area of Manara in northern Israel earlier today. Israel Rescue Services did not identify the location or provide information about the 10 others wounded by rocket blasts and shrapnel, but said 2 of them were in critical condition. They identified 15 launches from Lebanon over the past hour, and their different systems intercepted 4 of them. The rest fell into an open area.
Millions of Indians celebrated Diwali on Sunday with a Guinness World Record number of bright earthen oil lamps as concerns about air pollution soared in the South Asian country. Across the country, dazzling multicolored lights decked homes and streets as devotees celebrated the annual Hindu festival of light, symbolizing the victory of light. The spectacular and much-awaited massive light of the oil lamps took place, as usual, at Saru River in Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh state, the birthplace of their most revered deity, the god Ram. At dusk on Saturday, devotees lit over 2.22 million lamps and kept them burning for 45 minutes as he filled the air at the banks of the river, setting a new world record. Last year, over 1.5 million earthen lamps were lit. After counting the lamps, Guinness Book of Record representatives presented a record certificate to the state's top elected official, Yogi Adityanath. Over 24,000 volunteers, most students, helped prepare for the new record, said Pratibha Goyal, Vice Chancellor of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Avad University in Ayodhya. Diwali, a national holiday across India, is celebrated by socializing and exchanging gifts with family and friends. Many light earthen oil lamps or candles and fireworks are set off. In the evening, a special prayer is dedicated to the Hindu goddess Lakshmi, who is believed to bring luck and prosperity.
Japan led an annual multinational naval exercise that included the Philippines as an observer for the first time, as Filipino Coast Guard vessels are increasingly harassed by China in the disputed South China Sea. The annual exercises that began Saturday off Japan's coast also included the United States, Australia, and Canada. Their aim is to demonstrate and increase ways to navigate